Coventry academic is being urged to apologise over controversial remarks he made on this programme last week about the role of Special Constables. The head of law at Coventry University College, George Ellison, who incidentally is also an ex-police officer, was commenting about plans by Warwickshire Police to take on 100 more specials. George told me essentially it was just policing on the cheap.
Specials do have the same powers of police officers, and the frightening thing within that is that you're going to give somebody who's had 2, maybe 3 weeks of training the power to take your liberty away.
Well, he's back in the studio with me this morning, as is the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner for Warwickshire, Eric Wood. Gentlemen, good morning. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Morning.
Eric, if I can start with you, weren't happy about George's comments, were you?
Very unhappy, Shane. They were erroneous, ill-informed, and frankly an insult to the many hundreds of men and women who volunteer in Coventry and in Warwickshire to serve their communities as special constables. George really, I think, owes them an apology, because their training is not a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. It's actually, as he knows, substantially more.
I'll let him speak in a minute, but he wasn't criticising them, was he? He wasn't saying that they were wrong in doing it. What he was saying is that people like you are doing policing on the cheap. He was criticising you, not the specials.
No, Shane, he was confusing 2 issues. One is about how we police in this country. That's an issue. Special constables have a long tradition. They're not policing on the cheap. By implication, he was saying, they're out in the streets after 2 or 3 weeks training.
I've got to stop you there. They are policing on the cheap, though, aren't they? You don't pay them. You don't give them any benefits. Will you stop saying that they're not policing on the cheap? Because they are.
They're policing out of a sense of duty to their citizens and their community. And there's a long tradition of people volunteering. We have people who volunteer for the TA, for the Royal Navy Reserve. We have volunteers in the St John Ambulance Brigade. And to compare, as George did, frankly, a doctor, a constable, with a butcher, a special constable, was inflammatory language, not designed to help, irrational and ill-behaving of an academic.
Have you got it all wrong, George?
Can I say from the word go, Eric has probably become a very good lawyer, where he takes part of conversation and uses them totally out of context. You have to take into account what I said in whole, and what I said was, I appreciate the problems that Warwickshire have in budget restraints and etc. And if you're going to lose 20% of their budget, where 87% is on staffing, it means they're going to have to find policing from somewhere else. My criticisms were at individual specials. I've worked in the police since 1977. I've got a great deal of respect for the individuals who perform as special constables. However, you have to go and say, is that a quality of policing where you have a full-time officer who's specially trained to do his job? The cost implications of doing that can't be afforded. So Warwickshire have gone to providing special constables who do not get the same amount of training as police officers. It's not comparable. No matter what Eric says about they do get I'm led to believe the 2 weeks that I stated is actually 6 weekends and a couple of nights. That cannot
but that is 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, that cannot be compared to 2 years intensive training as a constable. And unfortunately,
before we can we just come back to that training, because that was something that was mentioned earlier before, Eric. The training issue. I mean, whether it's 2 weeks or whether it's 6 weeks ends or whether it's 10 one day, it doesn't really matter, does it? Really, in terms of what it is. I mean, they don't get the same amount of training that a fully qualified police officer will get.
Of course they don't, and nor should they. They are special constables. Let's be clear what training they do get.
But they have the same powers, so shouldn't they have the same training?
Shane, let me finish in terms of the training they actually get. Let's deal with fact and not fiction. They do an awful lot of e-learning by computer. They attend for 8 long weekends. They then have 8 evening sessions. Now, those sessions are not training. They're monitoring, evaluating the learning they've done at home. George knows this. He's worked in the Open University. So they have 121 hours where they're assessed, they're trained, they're helped. After that, they have to go out and patrol with an experienced constable. And they spend between 6 and 12 months before they can be fully independent as a special constable.
You're not seriously suggesting, though, that e-learning is a good way of teaching somebody how to deal with somebody with a knife or a gun, or...
No, they're not, because they're trained in how to deal with all of that in those weekends and those evenings. But let's separate 2 issues. We're not comparing police constables with specials. If George will apologise for his remarks and say he did not intend to insult specials or their training or their commitment, let him do that, let's big up a bit, and let's move on and talk about the other issue.
Are you prepared to do that?
Well, as I said to Eric, I think he's taken my words out of context. There was no intention ever to assault. I have been in the position, as I've said, where I've worked with specials.
But isn't it, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but isn't that the reality, is that you've been a copper, and coppers don't like specials? That's informing the way.
I have to say that there's been...
Well, it used to be the case, didn't it? You say it's not the case now.
In 1977, when I joined the police, specials were not liked, and the phrases you used, "you're stealing our jobs," were taken. Can I say that's the same in the legal profession, where solicitors now have higher rights, barristers will say, "you're stealing our jobs." So that happens throughout the professions. However, there has been a stark improvement in specials. Their training has improved, their acceptance within the police force has been improved. What my comment was, you cannot say to the public, we are policing the streets and we're going to put 100 special constables on. They're not comparable to 100 police officers. And they cannot. Because, as I've said to you, Eric, answer the question. If you're going to run a special operation of a weekend and you need 6 special constables to play, and they've been at work all day and they come home and they think, I'm not going to go in tonight. So I'm just going to phone in and not go in. What would you do about it?
Right, well, I'll tell you what actually happened. Last Saturday, Warwickshire Police ran Operation X, designed to use automatic number plate recognition and to take out criminals and crooks in Rugby, Nuneaton and Leamington. This was a Saturday. 41 special constables turned out. Everyone rostered turned out. Everyone helped in taking crooks off the street. We're not comparing police constables with specials. They do different jobs. One is full-time, one isn't. But actually, Shane, if I'm hurt in the street, if I'm mugged in the city, if I have a road accident, if I see an officer coming to help me, I don't care if they're a special or a full-time constable. I'm grateful for the help. So, George has acknowledged he didn't mean to say what he said. So let's accept, George, you're saying sorry to our specials, and let's move on.
George, are you?
I go back, Eric, you'd be a fantastic barrister. You're in the wrong profession. You're playing with words. What I said is that there was a misunderstanding, and the implication was put by yourselves and your colleagues, not me, is that I was asked the question, and I stay with that question. You cannot compare the training that police officers have and specials.
I've got to leave it there. You're both welcome back on the show any time, though. Seriously, run out of time. George Ellison, who's an academic from Coventry University College, and the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner for Warwickshire, Eric Wood, joining us on the show.